The galaxy was wide, ancient, and full of civilizations that had reached unimaginable heights. Entire stars were harnessed to fuel energy weapons, fleets of ships could leap across light years in moments, and minds were linked in networks that spanned multiple planets. In the midst of this brilliance, humans were an oddity. Earth had long been considered a backwater world, a tiny blue planet on the edge of a sleepy spiral arm. Its people were curious, inventive, and stubborn, but they had arrived late to the galactic stage. To most alien observers, humans were primitive. They built their spaceships with raw materials rather than exotic alloys, relied on railguns that shot solid projectiles instead of energy beams that could slice through starships, and made decisions with a mix of courage and chaos that seemed reckless. Yet in the midst of that apparent simplicity, there was something profound. Humans did not see limits the way other civilizations did. Where others measured rules, humans measured possibilities. On the bridge of the Odyssey, humanity's first truly interstellar warship, Captain Lyra Tan watched the distant stars scroll past the viewport. Unlike the highly automated bridges of other species, her crew operated with hands-on skill, intuition, and teamwork. They spoke in a quick, clipped language, shouting numbers and coordinates across the metallic corridors as calculations scrolled along the walls. Each of them understood that the galaxy might underestimate them, but that would not stop them. In fact, it worked to their advantage. Lyra's first officer, a young officer named Amir, tapped the side of his console. Scanners indicate an incoming vessel. Type, unknown. Not in any registry. Lyra leaned forward. Distance? 6 million kilometers, closing fast. No weapon signature yet. Energy readings are low, she smirked. Probably thinks we're defenseless. That's fine. Let them be wrong. On most worlds, the idea of firing a railgun at an enemy might have seemed outdated. Alien commanders preferred elegant energy beams or plasma torpedoes that glimmered with sophisticated patterns. Railguns, in comparison, were simple. Accelerate a solid metal projectile at near light speeds and smash through whatever stood in its path. It was a brute force approach, something that humans had perfected not because they were technologically backward, but because they were practical. If it worked, it worked. The vessel approached, a sleek triangular form that shimmered with faint energy shields. Its marking suggested it belonged to the Xyrath Dominion, a race known for pride, precision, and a strict hierarchy. They had never faced humans before, and they had no idea what was coming. Ready the main railgun, Lyra ordered. Her voice carried calm confidence. The crew of the Odyssey moved in perfect synchrony, adjusting targeting arrays, calibrating magnetic accelerators, and aligning the projectile bays. To an outsider, it might have seemed chaotic, but for humans, it was controlled chaos. A mixture of skill, intuition, and ingenuity. The Xyrath ship continued to advance, seemingly unaware of the threat. Its shields glowed faintly, a promise of safety that would soon be shattered. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Amir counted down, the railgun discharged. The projectile tore through the vacuum of space, moving faster than any eye could follow. When it struck, the impact was devastating. The Xyrath shields flared, trying to absorb the energy, but the solid projectile punched through like a hammer through thin metal. The ship shuddered, sparks erupting across its hull as vital systems failed. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. And that, she said softly, is why humans are not so easy to dismiss. In the wider galaxy, news of humanity's unconventional approach began to spread. Scholars, military leaders, and politicians debated how a primitive species could destroy elite warships with such ease. They could not understand it. Humans had not followed the standard path of technological development. They had not obsessed over energy weapons, quantum shields, or artificial intelligence. Instead, they had focused on mastering the fundamentals, and then innovating in ways that seemed unpredictable. Back on Earth, scientists and engineers celebrated quietly. They were not concerned with galactic opinion. What mattered was progress, exploration, and proving that humans could achieve what others considered impossible. Young engineers tinkered with magnetic accelerators. Programmers refined targeting algorithms, and strategists dreamed of new ways to surprise a galaxy that assumed humans were simple. In the midst of this, human culture thrived in its own way. Whereas other civilizations measured worth by conquest or accumulated knowledge, humans measured worth by curiosity, creativity, and courage. On Earth, children learned about the stars in classrooms filled with sketches of distant worlds. They built model spacecraft from scrap materials and imagined journeys beyond the solar system. Every failure was a lesson, every experiment a step forward. That mindset had followed them into space. Even among the crew of the Odyssey, this spirit was visible. Lieutenant Mara, head of engineering, laughed as she recalibrated a damaged railgun barrel. "I swear," she said, "these things are more temperamental than a sentient computer." "Temperamental or brilliant?" Amir teased. "Both," Mara replied, smiling. "But they get the job done." This combination of practical skill, improvisation, and ingenuity defined humans. They could not match the galaxy in terms of sheer elegance, but they could surprise it, time and time again. While other species relied on predictability, humans thrived on adaptability. Where others saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities. In the following weeks, the Odyssey explored uncharted systems, mapping planets, recording alien signals, and quietly demonstrating humanity's capability. Encounters with alien species often began with skepticism, followed by disbelief, and ended in respect, sometimes fear. Humans were a species that refused to conform to expectations. Their approach to technology was a reflection of their mindset, bold, practical, and unafraid to challenge the assumptions of the galaxy. On one remote moon, the crew watched a double sunrise over jagged mountains. Lyra felt a rare moment of serenity. Despite the vast dangers of the galaxy, there was also beauty, wonder, and potential. Humanity had arrived, not with the fanfare of perfection, but with the raw energy of possibility, and that made them dangerous in the most impressive way. The galaxy might have laughed at them at first. It might have dismissed them as latecomers, backwater dreamers, or simpletons, but humans had already begun to prove that progress did not follow a single path. Sometimes strength came from simplicity, sometimes courage outweighed centuries of tradition, and sometimes the galaxy underestimated a species at its own peril. Captain Lyra Tan stared at the stars, her eyes reflecting distant suns and unseen worlds. The journey had just begun. Humanity's story was not one of following the galaxy's expectations, but of rewriting them entirely. And in the quiet hum of the Odyssey, the crew knew one truth above all. Humans would not just survive in the galaxy. They would leave their mark, and the universe would never forget it. Humanity's reputation as a quiet, unassuming species began to change in ways the galaxy had never predicted.
News of the Odyssey's railgun success spread across multiple star systems like a comet blazing through the night sky.
Some civilizations dismissed it as luck. Others studied it with thinly veiled concern. But no one anticipated what would happen when humans were drawn into the middle of an actual battle. It started in the uncharted sector known as Renor Void, a region of space that most species avoided due to unpredictable gravitational anomalies and drifting asteroid fields. Humans had mapped part of the area for scientific research and resource extraction, unaware that two powerful alien factions, the Zyrith Dominion and the Varel Syndicate, were already maneuvering for control. Captain Lyra Tan and her crew aboard the Odyssey had been surveying the edge of a gas giant when sensors lit up. Hundreds of ships, sleek and deadly, were converging in a massive formation. The galaxy's veterans recognized it instantly as a fleet maneuver for war. "Captain," said Lieutenant Mara from engineering, her eyes scanning the rapidly changing data streams. "We're not just near a fight. We're right in the middle of one." Lyra's hand rested on the edge of the console. "How many vessels?" "Hundreds," said Amir, her first officer. "Zyrith and Varel forces, both advanced. Both armed to the teeth, and neither knows we're here." Yet, the bridge went silent for a moment. The galaxy had seen humans before, but never as active participants in a true interstellar battle. Most alien fleets assumed humans would flee or surrender. That assumption would soon be shattered. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Raise shields and ready the railguns. We're not leaving until we see what humans can do." The alien fleets noticed the Odyssey almost immediately. From the decks of Zyrith dreadnoughts, sensors picked up the human vessel's signature. Energy readings were modest, ship design unremarkable. Varel scouts, used to detecting tiny variations in energy emissions, barely registered a concern. To them, humans were irrelevant, and that was exactly how humanity liked it. The first volley came without warning. Varel beam cannons cut through space like rivers of light, targeting the Odyssey with lethal precision. Shields flared, absorbing the impact, but the human crew did not panic. They worked with calm, coordinated efficiency, adjusting railgun calibration, plotting trajectories, and predicting enemy movements. Firing at the lead Varel frigate, Lyra commanded. The railgun charged with a low hum, the magnetic accelerators lining up the projectile with precise calculation. A massive slug of metal shot from the gun, faster than any eye could follow. It struck the enemy ship dead center. Energy shields flared violently, attempting to disperse the impact, but they were useless against raw kinetic force. The frigate shook violently before tearing apart, debris scattering across space. The alien commanders gasped. Their sensors could not comprehend what had just happened. A single human ship had destroyed a vessel equipped with centuries of technological advancement. Another target, Lyra said. Virel cruiser portside. The crew adjusted their targeting, and another projectile tore through the vacuum, punching holes in armor that no energy weapon had ever pierced. Every strike sent ripples of shock through the alien fleets. They had faced many enemies before, but none moved like humans. The humans did not rely on overwhelming numbers or exotic technology. They relied on ingenuity, adaptability, and precision. Each railgun blast was calculated, but the real strength came from unpredictability. Alien fleets were trained to anticipate energy-based attacks, but they had no models for solid projectiles moving at near light speeds. Meanwhile, smaller Zareth vessels attempted flanking maneuvers. They fired plasma torpedoes, a weapon humans had never encountered before. Mara and her engineering team quickly modified shield matrices, redistributing power to absorb the energy bursts. The shields held and the torpedoes fizzled harmlessly against the reinforced hull. Captain, they're adjusting formation, Amir warned. They're learning. Good, Lyra replied. Let them try. Humans are better under pressure. As the battle continued, the Odyssey moved with remarkable fluidity. It darted between enemy lines, targeting key vessels with pinpoint accuracy. Each strike slowed the alien advance and sent chaos rippling through their ranks. Observers on distant command bridges could not understand how a single ship could perform maneuvers that entire fleets struggled to execute. On one of the alien command stations, a Varel admiral shouted into his communicator, "This is impossible. One ship, one human ship, is destroying our fleet. Prepare the countermeasure protocols." But humans did not need protocols. They relied on observation, rapid thinking, and teamwork. Mara rerouted power to the secondary railguns, adjusting angles based on the slightest gravitational distortions. Sensors predicted asteroid movement, fleet positioning, and even minor ship vibrations. The Odyssey fired again and again, tearing through enemy vessels as if they were made of paper. During the chaos, Lyra saw something that made her pulse quicken. A Varel flagship, enormous and bristling with weapons, moved into position to target civilian transports in a nearby system. "We can't allow that," she said firmly. "Amir, full acceleration." Mara secondary railguns charged. The Odyssey leapt forward, moving through the battlefield with the grace of a predator. Railguns fired in rapid succession, striking the flagship's engine arrays. Sparks and explosions erupted across its hull. The flagship lost power and drifted helplessly, forcing the remaining alien vessels to retreat. In the aftermath, silence hung across the battlefield. Humans had survived, and more than that, they had turned the tide. Alien fleets had come expecting an easy fight, only to discover that humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. Back on Earth, news of the skirmish caused astonishment. Analysts could not comprehend how a species with what they considered primitive weapons had defeated fleets armed with the galaxy's finest technology. Debates erupted in scientific forums, military councils, and academic chambers. Humans did not respond with pride or arrogance. They responded with curiosity, eager to learn, refine, and continue exploring. The Odyssey continued its patrols, encountering strange phenomena, uncharted planets, and signals from distant stars. But every crew member knew that this first real battle had changed everything. Humanity had proven that courage, creativity, and ingenuity could overcome even the most advanced technology. They had shocked the galaxy, and it would never look at humans the same way again. Captain Lyra Tan stood on the observation deck, watching the stars stretch in streaks as the ship accelerated through space. "We are not the strongest," she said quietly, "but we are the most surprising. And sometimes that is enough to change the course of history." Lieutenant Amir joined her, a thoughtful expression on his face. Do you think they will come back? Eventually, Lyra admitted. But next time we will be ready. Humans learn fast. Humans adapt. And humans never give up. The galaxy is about to discover what we are truly capable of. As the Odyssey disappeared into the void, it left behind more than debris and astonishment. It left a message. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. They had entered the galaxy quietly, seemingly unremarkable, and yet they had already rewritten the rules of engagement. Other civilizations might have ancient traditions, massive fleets and advanced energy weapons, but humans had something unique: unpredictability, ingenuity, and the refusal to follow the expected path. Every planet they passed, every system they charted, carried the unspoken warning that humans were not merely surviving in the galaxy. They were beginning to define their place in it. And so, the galaxy, vast and proud, began to watch. It began to pay attention. And for the first time it realized that humans were not just another species among many. They were a force that could not be measured, a species whose next move could shock entire civilizations. For the crew of the Odyssey, it was only the beginning. The battle had been won, but the adventure, the exploration, and the surprises were far from over. Humanity had learned one undeniable truth. The galaxy might underestimate them, but humans would always find a way to astonish. The galaxy had finally begun to notice humanity, and not in the way humans had expected. Other species observed Earth's tactics and technology with a mixture of disbelief and fear. Railguns, once considered outdated, had shattered centuries of assumed superiority. Alien strategists scrambled to adapt, but humans did not stop at raw power. The next move, one that would leave even the most advanced civilizations bewildered, came not from brute force but from sheer ingenuity, teleportation technology. It began quietly. On the research decks of the Odyssey, Lieutenant Mara, head of engineering, had been experimenting with particle manipulation and quantum entanglement for months. The idea was simple in theory. If you could disassemble an object at one location and reconstruct it perfectly somewhere else, you could move anything instantly across space. In practice, the challenge was enormous. Even a small mistake could be catastrophic. Captain Lyra entered the lab, observing the careful operations. "How close are we?" she asked. Mara's eyes sparkled with excitement. "We've successfully transmitted small objects across a short distance. Chips, tools, and even small supplies. But if we scale this to personnel or larger objects, well, it's untested, uncharted territory," Lyra said, "which makes it perfect for humans." Amir, watching from the side, raised an eyebrow. "Perfect for humans? Or perfectly dangerous?" Lyra smiled. "Both. But remember what humans do best. Adapt. We may be the underdogs, but we think in ways others don't. That's why we surprise the galaxy." The first true test came during a routine patrol near a dense asteroid field. The Odyssey's sensors picked up a stranded human supply pod, marooned after a small accident in orbit. Normally, a rescue mission would take hours, risking exposure to unpredictable gravitational currents and potential alien interception. Mara suggested a test: teleport the pod directly onto the ship. The entire crew watched as the quantum array powered up. Lights pulsed in rhythm, and the hum of energy filled the chamber. Then in an instant the pod vanished from its orbit and reappeared in the designated hold of the Odyssey. No explosions, no errors, nothing but perfection. The crew erupted in cheers. Humans had done the impossible. They had not just caught up to the galaxy, they had leapt ahead. Word of the success spread fast. Other species, already shaken by humans' railgun proficiency, now faced a technological conundrum they could barely understand. Teleportation was the ultimate equalizer. A single human ship could deploy forces anywhere, bypassing defenses, ambushing fleets, and reshaping strategy in ways that conventional wisdom could not anticipate. Not long after, a small encounter demonstrated the potential on a grand scale. Scouts from the Varel Syndicate, still recovering from their previous defeat, attempted to ambush the Odyssey near a neutral trade corridor. They assumed humans would act predictably, moving through known space lanes like every other species. They were wrong. As the Syndicate ships closed in, Lyra gave her order: prepare teleport arrays. Target enemy launch bays and critical bridges. In moments, the arrays hummed to life. Ships and supplies moved, almost as if bending space itself, appearing suddenly among the enemy fleet. The Varel commanders scrambled, firing wildly at empty space, trying to anticipate where humans would strike next. But humans did not strike where others expected. They struck where opportunity and strategy aligned. A small group of transport pods appeared within the Syndicate formation, carrying rapid response Marines. Simultaneously, the Odyssey's railguns tore through the remaining defenses. In minutes, the ambush had been reversed. Humans had turned from prey to predator, using intelligence, improvisation, and technology in tandem. In the aftermath, alien scholars debated endlessly. How could a species, still relying on what many considered primitive weapons, leap to teleportation technology while advanced civilizations still struggled with perfecting energy weapons? The answer was simple, but almost impossible for outsiders to grasp. Humans did not follow the same rules. Where other civilizations had rigid hierarchies, humans encouraged experimentation. Where most feared failure, humans studied it. Creativity and courage were valued more than tradition or doctrine. This mindset allowed them to skip steps that others thought essential. Railguns first, teleporters later. Humans did not need to follow the conventional sequence to dominate the battlefield. They redefined the sequence entirely. Even within the human fleet, excitement and tension mingled. Lieutenant Amir recorded data for analysis. "The others will try to copy us," he said. "They always do. But it won't be the same. They think like them. We think like humans." Captain Lyra nodded. "Exactly. They may replicate the tech, but they can't replicate the spirit. That's what makes humans unpredictable." The true test came when an entire Varel blockade tried to intercept a convoy, carrying vital supplies to a distant colony. Conventional logic suggested the convoy would be destroyed before reaching safety. But humans saw possibilities the galaxy had never imagined. The Odyssey led the convoy to a location behind a dense asteroid belt, far from the main battlefield. There, Mara activated the teleportation arrays, moving the convoy instantaneously to a secure orbit near the colony. When the Varel fleet arrived, they found empty space where the convoy had been. Not a single ship was lost, and the humans had demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that stunned even their allies. Across the galaxy, communication networks buzzed with reports of human unpredictability. Commanders tried to analyze, predict, and counter human strategies, but every time they thought they understood, humans acted differently. It was not random. It was not reckless. It was creative intelligence in action. On Earth, scientists marveled at the implications. Teleportation was no longer just a battlefield advantage. It could revolutionize logistics, exploration, and even colonization. Supplies could reach distant planets instantly. Injured personnel could be transported home in seconds, and entire construction projects could progress at unprecedented speeds. The potential was limitless. For the crew of the Odyssey, however, the excitement was tempered with responsibility. Teleportation, though powerful, required precision and careful planning. One small miscalculation could have disastrous consequences. Mara spent hours recalibrating the arrays, adjusting for spatial anomalies, gravitational distortions, and quantum interference. Every successful operation was a testament not just to technology, but to human persistence and skill. Amir, watching the calculations scroll across his console, said, "I keep thinking about the galaxy out there. They have all this history, all this tech, and yet humans are still the ones surprising them." Lyra smiled. "History teaches lessons, Amir, but it doesn't dictate what's possible. Humans learn fast, adapt fast, and refuse to accept limits. That's why the galaxy underestimates us, because we don't play by their rules." As weeks passed, human fleets continued to combine railguns and teleportation in ways no other species could predict. Strategic strikes became faster, more efficient, and nearly impossible to counter. Alien fleets began to understand a terrifying truth. Humans were not just advancing, they were leapfrogging. Where other civilizations followed predictable paths of technological development, humans created their own. On one distant world, a Varel admiral convened with his advisors. "They have no fear," he said. "They do not follow our strategies, and yet they succeed. How is this possible?" An elder scholar replied quietly, "It is not the weapons nor the technology. It is the thinking. They see what others cannot, and they act where others hesitate. That is the essence of humanity." Indeed, humans had learned to turn their perceived weaknesses into strengths. What other civilizations considered primitive, The focus on kinetic weapons, reliance on improvisation, and unorthodox approaches became the foundation for domination. Railguns, once seen as unsophisticated, shattered shields and armor with unmatched efficiency. Teleportation, an almost mythical leap, allowed them to strike where enemies never expected. Together, the combination was unstoppable. For the crew of the Odyssey, every mission reinforced a singular truth. The galaxy would never understand humans completely, and that was humanity's greatest advantage. They did not need to conform, imitate, or follow ancient traditions. They only needed courage, creativity, and the determination to act where others would not. As the stars streaked past the Odyssey's hull during another patrol, Captain Lyra Tan looked at her crew and said, "This is only the beginning. Humans are not just learning the galaxy, we are teaching it a lesson. One that no one will forget," Lieutenant Mara added. "And we're only getting started. Railguns first, teleporters later. The galaxy thinks it knows what's next, but we always find a new path." In that moment it was clear. Humans were no longer the underestimated backwater species. They were innovators, pioneers, and a force that the galaxy had not yet learned how to measure. And with every jump, every teleportation, every calculated strike, humans proved one undeniable truth. The unexpected path often led to the most remarkable victories. The galaxy had begun to take humanity seriously. Where once humans were dismissed as a backwater species, they were now regarded as unpredictable, dangerous, and remarkably clever. But admiration did not mean safety. A shadow was spreading across nearby star systems, a force so powerful and ancient that no civilization had yet found a way to stop it. The galaxy had learned to fear humans, and now humans would face a challenge that tested everything they had learned. Captain Lyra Tan stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, staring at the dense cluster of alien warships in orbit around a dying star. Reports indicated a massive energy anomaly moving toward the sector. It was unlike anything sensors had recorded. Waves of dark energy pulsed through space, distorting readings and interfering with communications. Every civilization that had encountered such phenomena had lost entire fleets. Lieutenant Amir broke the silence. "Captain, this force, it's consuming systems faster than anything recorded. Our scouts call it the darkness." Lyra's jaw tightened. "We've faced hostile fleets before. We've adapted. We've survived. This will be no different. Prepare the crew. Full defensive protocols and railgun readiness." Mara, at engineering, adjusted power to the ship's shields. "The darkness isn't a fleet," she said. "It's something else. We can't shoot it. We can't scan it fully. It moves like a living storm." Lyra considered that. Humans had survived because of adaptability, creativity, and courage. Against the darkness, they would need all three, and more. As the anomaly drew closer, the first wave of its effect struck the outer systems. Entire stations vanished, consumed by the strange energy. Planets flickered in and out of existence. Civilizations that had relied on massive fleets were powerless. Panic spread across the stars. The Odyssey moved forward, its crew determined to face the threat directly. Humans could not outrun the darkness. It seemed to expand faster than any ship could accelerate. Instead, they would confront it with ingenuity. "Teleport arrays ready," Lyra commanded. "We may not be able to destroy it, but we can outmaneuver it." The strategy was simple yet daring. Using teleportation, the Odyssey would deploy scout drones to gather data from within the darkness, while railguns would target any structures or fleets attempting to contain or resist it. Humans had never faced a force like this, but they would apply their principles: observe, adapt, and act with precision. As the first scout drones entered the edge of the anomaly, the crew watched screens filled with chaotic energy waves and distortion patterns. Data flickered, sometimes disappearing entirely. Mara's voice was calm but intense. "We can't predict its movement using conventional models. We need to improvise." Lyra nodded. "Improvisation is what humans do best. Adjust patterns based on what you see, not what you expect." Meanwhile, alien fleets attempted to engage the darkness directly. Their energy weapons fired in brilliant bursts only to be swallowed instantly. Entire dreadnoughts vanished, leaving nothing behind. Observing this, humans realized that brute force alone would not work. They needed creativity and speed. "Teleporting probe cluster to the core," Lyra ordered. The crew recalculated coordinates, timing each jump precisely to avoid destructive energy spikes. In an instant, the probes vanished and reappeared within the anomaly. Data streamed back, chaotic but invaluable. Patterns emerged, revealing moments of instability within the darkness. Targets, Lyra said, pointing to screens. These unstable pockets, they are our only chance to act. Railguns. Prepare to strike immediately after probes report coordinates. The railguns charged, magnetic accelerators humming with potential energy. The crew synchronized timing with the probe's telemetry, ready to strike at precisely the right moment. The darkness, massive and seemingly unstoppable, would soon meet the ingenuity of humanity. The first strike was unlike any other. A railgun projectile sped toward a pocket of instability revealed by the probes. For a fraction of a second, it appeared that the darkness would consume it. Then, with a shock that rippled across the bridge, the projectile hit the unstable energy, causing a burst that temporarily dissipated the anomaly in that area. The crew cheered, though cautiously. They knew the darkness was far from defeated. Adjust pattern for the next cluster, Lyra commanded. We strike, we retreat, and we strike again. Keep moving, keep adapting. Over the next hours, the Odyssey executed a dance of precision and strategy. Teleportation allowed the ship to appear at unexpected coordinates, striking pockets of instability and retreating before the darkness could retaliate. Railguns destroyed secondary structures within the anomaly that threatened nearby systems. Humans were learning its behavior, predicting its shifts, and exploiting every moment of weakness. Yet even as the crew worked tirelessly, the darkness evolved. It seemed to sense attempts to manipulate it. Energy currents shifted unexpectedly, forcing humans to adjust calculations on the fly. Sensors flickered, alarms sounded, and every crew member was stretched to the limits of skill and endurance. Lyra took a moment to speak to the crew over the comms. Every species before us has failed because they assumed the universe would follow rules they understood. Humans survive because we don't assume. We observe, adapt, and act. Keep thinking, keep moving, and keep trusting each other. We are not powerless. The moral support bolstered the crew. Even in the face of a seemingly invincible force, humans had confidence in their ability to innovate and endure. Where alien fleets might have retreated in fear, humans advanced with purpose. Amir monitored probe data with a keen eye. Captain, there's a pattern forming. The darkness isn't random. It reacts to energy spikes and directional forces. If we create controlled bursts, we might be able to guide its movement. Lyra considered this. A risky strategy, she said. But it may be our only option. Mara, are the railguns ready for precision bursts? Yes, Mara replied, adjusting targeting matrices. We'll need perfect timing, but it's possible. The next phase began. Teleportation arrays positioned the Odyssey near the edge of the anomaly, where unstable energy pockets were densest. Railguns fired controlled bursts, synchronized with the probe's data. Slowly, carefully, humans began to manipulate the darkness, guiding it away from inhabited systems and toward regions where it would dissipate naturally. It was grueling work. Energy spikes threatened to damage the ship. Teleportation arrays risked overload. Every calculation had to be precise, yet humans thrived under pressure. Improvisation became a science, courage a necessity, and teamwork a lifeline. Hours turned into days. Systems aboard the Odyssey strained, crew fatigue mounted, but humanity pressed on. And then, in a moment of triumph, the darkness began to recede. Its massive energy currents collapsed inward, vanishing from several key systems. Civilizations that had feared annihilation cheered as the anomaly's advance slowed. Lyra allowed herself a moment to breathe. We've done it, she said quietly. Not destroyed, but contained. The galaxy can breathe, thanks to humans. Mara wiped sweat from her brow. We couldn't have done this without thinking differently. If we followed their methods, we would have failed, Amir added. Railguns and teleporters. Who would have thought? Brute force and innovation together. Humans make their own rules. The galaxy, observing from afar, was forced to reconsider its assumptions. Humans had survived not by sheer numbers or raw technology, but by ingenuity, adaptability, and determination. Where others saw limits, humans saw opportunity. Where others feared uncertainty, humans embraced it. For the crew of the Odyssey, the lesson was clear. The darkness was not invincible. The universe was full of challenges, some beyond comprehension. But with creativity, courage, and teamwork, humans could face even the most overwhelming odds. Railguns had shattered shields, teleporters had confounded expectations, and now, Human ingenuity had guided the galaxy through one of its darkest threats. Captain Lyra Tan looked out at the stars, their light flickering through the viewport. "The galaxy will remember this," she said. "They may fear us, respect us, or even underestimate us again, but humans will always adapt. Humans will always find a way, and that will never change." Even as the darkness receded into legend, humanity's reputation solidified. They were not merely survivors. They were pioneers, innovators, and protectors. Their methods were unorthodox, their approach unconventional, but their results were undeniable. Humans had faced the incomprehensible and emerged victorious, proving once again that the combination of courage, creativity, and adaptability was a force the galaxy could not ignore. The Odyssey set course for a nearby system, its crew weary but unbroken. For every challenge the galaxy could throw at humans, they would respond with ingenuity, precision, and determination. They had faced the darkness and won. And the galaxy, vast and ancient as it was, now knew that humans were no ordinary species. Humans had not just survived, they had rewritten expectations. And in doing so, they had proven one truth above all. When the universe throws its greatest challenges at humans, humans do not falter. They rise. The galaxy had changed. Where humans had once been dismissed as a backwater species, they were now seen as a force unlike any other. Railguns had shattered centuries of conventional thinking, teleportation had rewritten strategy, and ingenuity had overcome even the most terrifying forces. Yet even as the galaxy adapted to humanity's presence, a new challenge emerged, one that would test the very limits of human courage and creativity. Reports came from multiple star systems simultaneously. Mysterious energy storms, impossible to predict and growing stronger, threatened to engulf entire colonies. Scientists, military leaders, and explorers struggled to comprehend the phenomenon. It was faster, smarter, and more destructive than anything previously encountered. The galaxy had a name for it: the Null Tide. Entire fleets had disappeared attempting to confront it, leaving nothing but silence behind. Captain Lyra Tan stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, watching the stars flicker as the ship approached a system already devastated by the Null Tide. "We've faced impossible odds before," she said softly, "and we survived. We will face it the same way." Lieutenant Amir, scanning incoming data, frowned. "This is different, Captain. The Null Tide isn't just energy. It adapts, it shifts, it anticipates attacks, railguns, teleportation. Even our ingenuity may not be enough." Lyra's expression hardened. "Then we'll need to be faster, smarter, and more creative than ever before. Humans have faced overwhelming odds before. We learn, we adapt, and we find a way. This is no different." Mara at Engineering adjusted the railgun calibrations. "We'll need every advantage. Shields reinforced, teleport arrays ready, sensors tuned to detect the slightest disturbance. We can't fight it conventionally. We have to outthink it." The Odyssey moved into the devastated system carefully. Planets had been stripped of atmosphere, stations reduced to rubble, and fleets vanished without a trace. The Null Tide appeared as a swirling, shifting mass of dark energy, glowing faintly with unpredictable pulses. Sensors could barely capture its structure. "Targeting pattern detected," Amir said, "but it's inconsistent. It changes every few seconds." Lyra nodded. "Then we adjust every few seconds. We do not rely on patterns. We rely on observation, skill, and courage." The first encounter was brutal. The Null Tide shifted rapidly, enveloping an asteroid belt near the system. The Odyssey fired railgun volleys, hoping to disrupt its structure. The projectiles struck, but the effect was minimal. The Null Tide absorbed the impact, morphing instantly as if learning from the attack. Mara cursed under her breath. "It's learning. Everything we try, it adapts immediately." Lyra clenched her fists. "Then we force it to learn faster. We think differently. Humans survive because we act where others hesitate. We strike where others retreat. That's what we do." Teleportation arrays activated. Small probe drones jumped into the heart of the Null Tide, streaming live data back to the Odyssey. The crew studied the patterns, noting subtle instabilities within the massive energy flow. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but humans could detect it. "Here," Mara pointed at a fluctuating region on the display. "This area isn't fully stable. If we can focus the railguns and teleport probes there, we might force a chain reaction." Lyra nodded. "Then that's what we do." Amir, coordinate timing. Mara, charge railguns for maximum impact. Everyone else monitor for secondary effects. It was a delicate balance. The railguns had to fire at precise moments. The probes had to teleport into unstable regions without being destroyed, and the ship itself had to remain mobile, avoiding the null tide's shifting tendrils. The crew worked in perfect harmony, relying on intuition, training, and quick thinking. The first volley struck the instability. For a moment it seemed as though nothing would happen. Then a brilliant flash erupted from the core of the null tide, energy scattering in multiple directions. Sensors screamed alarms, but the Odyssey held its position. The probe arrays transmitted data in real time, guiding the next strikes. "Adjust angles," Lyra shouted. "Target the next unstable pocket. Do not give it time to adapt." The crew responded immediately. Railguns fired, probes jumped, and the null tide began to fracture. It reacted violently, sending out bursts of energy that threatened the ship, but humans adapted, adjusting shields and trajectory in real time. Each pulse, each flash revealed more weaknesses. Hours passed. The null tide fought back, shifting unpredictably, testing every skill the humans possessed. Yet they persisted. Their combination of railgun firepower, teleportation, and ingenuity slowly turned the tide. Where fleets of other species had been destroyed in minutes, humans held their ground and pressed forward. Amir, monitoring the chaos, realized something. "Captain, it responds to our actions. It isn't invincible. We can guide it. We can control its movement if we force it through these instabilities." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we do exactly that. Every strike, every teleport, every calculation, it must work together. This is our last hope for the sector." Using the probes, the crew manipulated the null tide's movement, guiding it away from inhabited planets and toward a collapsing star at the edge of the system. It was a gamble. Miscalculation could destroy the Odyssey or the entire system, but humans had always thrived in impossible situations. They adapted, innovated, and acted with precision when others hesitated. As the null tide neared the star, its energy currents began to destabilize further. The massive anomaly writhed, releasing bursts of energy in all directions. The Odyssey teleported probes deep into its core, mapping critical nodes of instability. Railguns fired in rapid succession, forcing the energy to collapse inward. Mara's voice trembled with concentration. "We're close. One more coordinated strike and we can force it into the star's gravity well." "Do it," Lyra commanded. Now is humanity's moment. The final sequence unfolded perfectly. Railguns fired in rapid precision, probes teleported into key points, and the null tide, unable to adapt fast enough, began to collapse. It accelerated toward the dying star, energy spiraling inward until with a massive implosion it vanished entirely. The sector was saved. Silence fell across the bridge. The crew, exhausted but exhilarated, allowed themselves a moment to breathe. They had faced the ultimate threat, one that had destroyed countless fleets and terrified civilizations, and they had succeeded. Humans had survived because they thought differently, acted decisively, and refused to accept limits. Amir exhaled. "We did it, Captain. We actually did it." Lyra nodded, her gaze on the stars beyond the viewport. "We always do. Humans survive because we never give up, and we never stop thinking, learning, and adapting." Across the galaxy, news of the null tide's defeat spread quickly. Alien civilizations, once confident in their own power, were humbled. Humans, a species long underestimated, had not only survived, but had saved entire star systems. Scholars debated endlessly, politicians reassessed alliances, and militaries realized that strategy and courage could outweigh centuries of technological superiority. On Earth, young engineers and scientists cheered. Children looked up at the stars, inspired by the courage and ingenuity of their species. Humans had proven a lesson older civilizations often forgot. Progress does not always follow a predictable path. Bravery, creativity, and adaptability could overcome even the most impossible odds. The crew of the Odyssey celebrated quietly in their own way. Mara tinkered with railgun calibration, Amir reviewed probe data, and Lyra reflected on the journey. They had faced countless challenges, but this, the null tide, was their greatest test yet. They had survived, and in doing so had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. Lyra stood once more on the observation deck, looking at the distant stars. "The galaxy may fear us," she said softly. "It may respect us or underestimate us again. But humans will always rise. We do not wait for permission. We do not follow the path set by others, and we never, ever give up. This is who we are. This is humanity. And with that, the Odyssey set course for new adventures, ready to explore, to protect, and to astonish. Humanity had survived the impossible, defeated the unimaginable, and ensured that their story would never be forgotten. Railguns, teleportation, and ingenuity had won the day, but more importantly, human courage and creativity had secured a place in the galaxy forever. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibility. For humans, the journey had just begun.